It now being 3 p.m., we can call the September 19th meeting of the Laconia Police Commission to order. Would you please rise for the pledge? And I would ask Commissioner Carr to lead us in the pledge.
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chief, would you?
Please take a moment of silence in remembrance of Donna Woodman, the city finance director who died unexpectedly last night. Thank you.
We have recording secretary Lauren Marsh, the executive assistant. Roll call. Commissioners present. Commissioner Tarr,
here.
Commissioner Mello,
Yep.
and Commissioner Whittam. We therefore have a quorum. I'd like to recognize the staff present. Chief Matthew J. Canfield, Captain Alan Grayton, Lieutenant Richard Simmons, Lieutenant Michael P.
Lieutenant Finogle had
Absent.
a family emergency. He had to
Okay.
leave.
Lieutenant Kevin Butler, and Prosecutor James Sawyer. Moving on, let's go to personnel matters. Commendations and awards. Chief Canfield?
Nothing?
Nothing under training. Captain Green?
There are 3 out-of-state training requests that we'll address under commission action later. Unless you have
Audits
any
and
questions.
bulletins. Chief Canfield?
Nothing?
Resignations and retirements. Chief Canfield?
Nothing for that?
Hirings. Captain Green, you can speak to that issue?
There are 5 candidates in the process. They've all gone through their polygraph, and they're working on the rest of their backgrounds now. So, looks good. Hopefully, a November hiring date.
Hiring, good.
There'll also be another physical test on November 6th.
Where does that bring us up to, Captain, as far as staffing goes?
If we get these 5, I believe we will be level.
Full stop?
Yes. Right?
We'll actually be overhired, but we anticipate a couple of people leaving very shortly after the first of the year, so.
Were any of those people certified people from other departments, or were they all outside?
All uncertified candidates.
Can I ask one more question? I was wondering about, someone had told me that state police was offering some kind of financial incentive for people that got hired over there, passed all the background stuff and the physical requirements. They were offering a financial incentive,
I'm not
a hiring bonus, for lack of a better.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We can certainly inquire on that. We've considered it here that the downside of the hiring bonus is certainly the unfairness to people that were recently hired with us, or, you know, previous employees that continue to work for us and produce. But that's something we can consider and look
Yeah,
at.
I mean, if we're getting the numbers of people apply, I just wonder if when we don't sometime, whether or not that would be a tool that could.
Yeah, the 5 people that are in backgrounds right now are very well connected to the area,
Yep.
and 5 very good qualified candidates, so we're pretty enthused by that.
Thank you.
Promotions and classification changes. Chief Canfield?
Nothing?
Business Bureau Commendus Forum. Captain Green?
Updates on the building. We recently had the Sally Port doors farthest away from the building have been modified so that the transport van will now fit inside, which is very good. The drying cabinet that we had ordered for any type of clothing or whatever that's covered with biological matter that needs to be dried, that has arrived. I may have made a little mistake and got a large one, but we got it into the evidence room. Chief, thank you. And we're gonna be doing some rearranging in the outer evidence room to make it a better workflow in there for processing evidence. The portables that we ordered, those have been delivered. They just came in today, so Lieutenant Finogle will be distributing those new portables. The ventilation system for the evidence room and the armory has been approved for a sole source for Control Technologies. Kevin Dunleavy with Parks and Recs will be working with Control Technologies to get a final plan together for that and when they're gonna be able to get that started. Submitted the CIP for next year on September 10th, and Chief and I will have our presentation on October 10th for the CIP request. That includes cruisers, a new vehicle for the ACO. I'm gonna request more of the Crime Eye cameras, the one that we got just before beginning of June this past year. Interactive use of force equipment and some more computer equipment. Doing the planning for Pumpkin Fest now, and last weekend we had Bike Timber Fest, which went off fairly well.
No law enforcement concerns last week?
None really. We had one little small disturbance out in front of the Tower Hill after closing on Friday night. That was addressed by liquor enforcement who was there at the time and witnessed it, along with myself. There are some things that can be tightened up with it, but everything went really well. No major issues at all.
How big a crowd? Any estimate or?
When I was there Friday night, I'd say at the height, there was probably maybe 1,000 people in the footprint at the busiest point. Not sure Saturday was about the same, maybe.
Saturday was busy. Saturday afternoon was busy. It was wall-to-wall people. I think they maxed out their capacity, so. I think it was a good event.
Success, good.
Yep.
Yep, everything went very well with that.
So you would recommend this again next year if they wanted it?
9 days?
Yeah.
Were there any specific costs to the PD for that? I know you had people
Yep.
present up there.
Yes, that was a detail. During the nights, there were 2 officers that were on detail pay, paid for by the organizer, which is Anthony, who owns
Next
Tower
question,
Hill.
They pay for that.
Yep, during the daytime, we had 1 officer there, one of our part-time officers, and he was there just on regular time, so there wasn't a detail pay issue there.
Operations Lieutenant, Lieutenant Simmons.
The highway safety grant ends at the end of the month. That'll be starting back up in November. We'll be submitting everything in mid-October. Everything has to be turned in. We've already been accepted for basically the same amount of money as we were for last year, so those will continue on again. School's back in session, so Officer Orton is back in the high school. I think things have been going pretty well over there. They are having a parade, homecoming parade this Friday. That'll be at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Leaves from the high school, goes down Union Ave to Busy Corner, Church Street, around the flagpole and back. So it's probably going to cause some traffic issues at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. In the past, they've had a kickoff at 4:30. This year, they're going to do it right at 4. So we'll have some people out there. With everybody returning to school, overall, I think things went very well. There was some traffic issues, Elm Street School and Pleasant Street. Pleasant Street was quite a bit worse because of the road construction and stuff going on there, but I think we got those worked out. Officer Jepson actually completes his, the first part of his K-9 school, the patrol certification tomorrow. So we'll get him back out on the road and get our dog out there, which would be great. I've heard nothing but good things about him in school, so I think him and the dog are both doing very well. Citizens Academy, tonight will be the week 2. Officer Adams has been running that, and there's 9 people in class, and seems like a pretty good class. I think it's going to go pretty well.
I'd just like to make one observation about, talk about traffic, Rich.
Yeah.
Going down Union Avenue, Court Street today. They have, as you know, private contractors doing traffic enforcement,
Yeah.
and one guy was not paying, clearly not paying, he was looking on his cell phone today. And there was motorists that not, what?
That was
not
the
what they're
last
supposed to
person down on the left.
do. Yes.
I watched him give a car the finger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
So
was,
the lady kinda going real slow and he's waving her arm and she went, lady made an obscene gesture to her.
today he was not paying attention to what he was supposed to be doing. Was that Busby Construction people, or?
Speaking of,
It's a separate traffic control company that they hired out, but I can definitely reach out and
Just
have a
an
conversation with
observation.
them.
Was a lot of traffic first thing this morning down there. He wasn't,
Yeah,
He went to his phone after he did the gesture too. So,
well, speaking of,
that's a 3-year project, so they're gonna be out there for a while.
I asked about, were they ever trained? And they said, did they go to a school in order to go out there and direct traffic and stuff like that? And they turned around and says, oh, no, we don't send anybody to school or anything like that.
No, they do. They have a, I think it's a 2-week certification process when they get hired with that. They do some training in
I
that.
turned around, he says, well, I'm the trainer. I have a guy come with me and I train him right on the site.
Huh,
And I said, well,
all right,
things have changed, I guess,
yeah. I can definitely reach out to them and have some,
because
Have a
I've seen
conversation
them go
with
like
them.
this.
Address that right with DPW and they can
Yeah.
pass it down the
doing
line.
that one, I saw him.
Yeah.
Another
Instead of
question?
using his full arm.
unrelated
like
to
this.
traffic. I just wonder, I know with Lieutenant Sweat's retirement, and the importance of a lot of the grants that he worked on up until he left, have we figured out a way to parcel that responsibility out so that it's as seamless
Yes, 2 months
as we
before,
can make it?
2 months before he left, we divided them amongst the 3 lieutenants primarily, and the captain picked up 1, divided amongst areas of responsibility, so they had a period of time to learn from Tom before he left and to get up to speed on him, so they are being addressed properly.
Okay, thanks, man.
Support lieutenant, are you speaking for Lieutenant Von Ogle too?
If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
I don't.
Are you sure?
I could ask a few, but it's fine.
Investigations lieutenant, Lieutenant Butler.
Hi, this is my first meeting, but all I would have to add is Commissioner Tyra about the grants. It's the Grand Shield Grant was up and authorized as of August 21st. So we've been slowly working on that, getting up some operations and so forth that we can use that money for. Other than that, very busy with backgrounds and the usual.
I was wondering, congratulations again on your promotion.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well deserved.
Thank you.
On the, let me find the thing you have in front of you.
Staff sheet.
I do have it here, honest. Yeah. Are you, with deference to the chief here on this, if you think there's any improvement you can make to this report in future meetings, as far as information you could share in a public setting, which I know has limitations, I
Well,
get that.
Some of it, we did talk about it, and some of the things we do are difficult to quantify, like,
Yeah.
how many hours does an officer spend in court, for
Yeah.
instance? How many it's hard to put that in a number.
Yeah.
So we did add some of the things, as far as patrol shifts covered, that's clearly time away from their normal duties. Training hours, that's time away.
I guess I was wondering if,
Yeah, it was hard to, we did discuss exactly what you're talking about, and we didn't, if you have any suggestions, by any means.
I just wondered if, within the public context, which we operate under here, if there was a way that you could maybe get some kind of a monthly summary of, other than just the statistical stuff about, in general terms, not this month, but about activity, without getting too specific, I'm just.
Yeah, we can
it is a
definitely do that.
Public setting here, and I know the stuff is confidential and law enforcement sensitive, I get that. But if there's some way you could come up with a summary every month about just activities without getting too specific, other than just the numbers here, Kevin,
Yeah, we can try to figure something out.
that'd be good.
I've got some ideas. I said I've got some ideas.
Okay.
Legal, Prosecutor Sawyer.
Under the, we've been dealing with the bail statute for about a month now, and as it applies, I think I mentioned it to district court, I don't think it's changed a lot, I didn't think it would, in terms of how we approach bail, the dangerousness is very similar to how it was applied before. It's just a little bit more formal, if you will. I mean, now it's clear and convincing evidence, and the one thing I can say is it's taking a little bit more time due to just talking about the bail statute, and there's been a lot of back and forth. So I've been at a number of bail hearings which last over half an hour, which before they wouldn't take that long. And that's Judge Garner is very methodical, he's very thorough, and he's a great listener and hears from both sides. So I think it's going well, and I don't see an appreciable difference in terms of how Laconia District Court does business. It's still a work in progress.
I was wondering, Jim, with the new passage of the pretrial services bail reform act, it's now law. Is Belknap County have a seat at the table? I know they're in the formulation stage about getting data, figuring out how to come up with a risk, pretrial risk assessment tool.
I don't know if
et cetera.
that's, I don't think that's in place yet. We do have a pretrial services program. Trish Thompson, who's a former probation parole officer for the state, is retired, and she's working out of the jail as a pretrial services. The restorative justice program used to do that function before she took the position just, I think it was in the beginning of August is when she retired. So she is doing that, but I don't, to your question about the tool, I don't think there is a tool in place that I'm aware of. And as of right now, Ms. Thompson is only dealing with Superior Court bail. Then they haven't opened it up to district court yet to have pretrial services out of the district
So
court.
the bail process, really, even though the law is passed, because they don't have typically how they do stuff with the state, they pass a law and then figure out how to implement it later on, which is exactly,
I've
What happened
heard
here?
rumors that I think there's 1 or 2 counties that have developed their own
Yeah.
tool,
yeah,
but it's not a statewide.
right. So the bail practice in Belknap County is pretty much consistent with the way it's been before the law was passed then, right? Is that fair
Well,
statement?
if you look at the bail statute, there are certain things that you now, the biggest one, which again doesn't happen a lot in district court, is you can't hold somebody
Yep.
on bail for a flight risk
Right.
unless they can meet that bail. So they have to be financially able to meet the bail you set for that. If you deem them a danger to themselves or the community, then you can hold them on bail. It's a similar analysis that was done before. Now there's a standard of clear and convincing evidence, which you have to establish. But there was no real standard before, but
Right.
now it's been identified as that level of proof. The other slight difference is homelessness and addiction can't be the sole reason that you hold somebody on preventative bail.
Say that again?
Addiction
Yeah.
and homelessness cannot be the sole reason that you're holding somebody on bail, which I don't think was ever, in Belknap County, was ever done. I think in other parts of the country, maybe that's the case, just because, you're struggling with substance misuse and are addicted to substances, then you sit in jail till your court date. In New Hampshire, definitely in Belknap County, I don't see that
Right.
happening. It is considered, that is a part of it, and I've made arguments that because of their addiction, they cannot, for whatever reason, comply with bail conditions, comply with protective orders, and their addiction drives their behavior. So that's the argument I make. It's not solely based upon their addiction, but because there are many people that are struggling with addiction that do not commit crimes. If they do commit a crime, they don't commit repeated crimes. But there are those who are addicted and for whatever reason, they just keep coming before us, and we see a lot of those.
Moving on to commission action, do I have a motion to accept the minutes of the previous meeting?
I move that we accept the minutes of the previous meeting.
Is there a second? On a motion made by Commissioner Carr and seconded by Commissioner Mello. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The meeting minutes of August 22nd were accepted as distributed. Moving on to out-of-state schools, Captain Grayton.
First is for Robin Moyer, 2018 IMC User Conference. IMC is our records management system that we have for all of our data at the PD. This would be at the Seacrest Hotel in North Falmouth, Mass, from October 22nd to the 23rd. Looks like the total cost is $284, as she, at one of her previous IMC customer trainings, she had won a free pass to the conference. Second is Pennsylvania State Police 2018 Reconstruction Seminar. This is for myself. This will be held in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The only cost for this, the seminar is free to any full-time law enforcement. The only cost will be meals, approximately $280. There's another officer that I know from the Seacoast that's going as well, so I'm gonna be staying in a room with him, so there'll be no cost for a room for that. And that's from October 30th through November 1st. And the third is a 5-day basic investigative course for Officer Croto. This will be held in Franklin, Massachusetts. The only cost for this will be her tuition of $875.
Question?
I'm just wondering, on the Pennsylvania training, Captain.
Yes, sir. Yep.
How is, I noticed Officer Howe is going to accident on-scene traffic crash investigation seminar. Are you guys working together on these, or on those incidents when they occur, or is, I'm just trying to
Yes,
figure out?
when we get called out to incidents, Officer Howe has been involved with those as well. The Pennsylvania State Police, you have to have been through at least the beginning class to be able to go to that. You have to have a certificate that you've completed the first 80 hours of training.
So it's more advanced than what?
Yes,
He's doing.
and they're actually gonna be doing some live crash demonstrations, crash data recording. And they also had a request for anybody who's interested to sign up for, which is outside of the normal hours of that. There's gonna be doing some mapping of headlights and investigating of nighttime visibility and stuff like that, which myself and another officer from that other department I'm staying with, we signed up for to do that in the outside hours of this. So it'll be something,
Thanks.
a lot of extra things that can be learned.
Is there a motion to accept the 3 out-of-training requests for Robin Moyer, Captain Alan Green, and Officer Howell?
Yeah, I move that we accept the out-of-state training request as presented.
Second. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion made by Commissioner Tyron, seconded by Commissioner Mello. The 3 training requests pass unanimously.
Thank you.
Moving on to review of monthly activity reports. Chief Canfield.
So for last month, we responded to, a total of 1,906 calls for service, which was down slightly from the corresponding month last year. However, our criminal offenses investigated were up to 373 cases, up from 315 the corresponding month last year. Criminal offenses cleared by arrest were 260, and total number of physical arrests were 151. If you'll notice, our motor vehicle stops were significantly down, less than half of the previous month, the corresponding month last year. I don't know what the contributing, or the actual cause is. I assume part of that is because there were a number of traffic enforcement details that were not filled, in combination with handling some more of the criminal offenses and more physical custody arrests. We responded to a total of 51 motor vehicle accidents, 2 with injury, issued 336 parking tickets, 4 DWI arrests, and 50 people were taken into custody for intoxication, which is up twice as much for the corresponding month last year. We responded to a total of 33 domestic disturbance calls, 132 other disturbances, 17 suicidal subjects, and investigated 15 violation of restraining orders. Our employees donated 14 hours of volunteer time for the month, and our victim services unit donated a total of 13 and a half hours, serving 9 victims.
Questions? No question? Okay, moving on again to monthly fleet report. Captain?
questions? I don't have it right in front of me, but I can help answer if you need.
Investigative unit statistics.
Now, the only thing I'd note, if you didn't notice it, is the training hours for August were very high. That was Dan Carson went to 2 weeks of training for the new Celebrite cell phone investigative tool. That was quite a bit of that. And also the new recruits, Detective Haran does the majority of the firearms training.
I do have one question. I know when, Lieutenant Sweat, I have to keep, he's my reference point for some of these questions, but I know he was, we sent a bunch of, some people to knock and talk training last year, I think. Wasn't it, Matt? Knock and talk
Yep.
training? Is that, is it something we're gonna be doing more of? I know those are hard, they don't present themselves
No,
too
and again,
often, but,
most of that would fall in the drug unit.
Yeah.
And like I said, Dan was gone for half of the
Yeah.
month. So, and we've been,
okay,
he hasn't been doing a lot of proactive
Yeah.
drug work with everything else that we're doing, so
okay,
that's why that would be down.
yeah.
Traffic statistics, Chief Canfield.
So for the month, we responded, for the month of July, we responded to 60 motor vehicle accidents. 336 parking tickets were issued. And then for the month of August, we responded to a total of 51 motor vehicle accidents with 2 that involved personal injury.
Any estimate as to the number of stops relative to talking on cell phones?
I'm sure we can get that breakdown for you as far as what the warnings are for. I don't think we have them here, but I think we can probably get those statistics for you.
Questions? Moving on, budget printout.
Any questions?
Seems like you're right on.
We're right on the money so far.
Yep. No questions? Okay. Moving on to correspondence to and from the department.
We had a nice thank you letter from the University of New Hampshire Police Department Police Chief, thanking our officers for helping them with the move-in day. It was a nice thank you letter from Officer Danute, who did a station tour of a child and her mother. They were very thankful. And then there was also a nice thank you letter and a donation to our Relief Association for doing a house check. That was a longer-term house check that we took care of.
Nice check.
Yeah, very nice.
I do have, let me ask one question, Chief, about that house check.
Yep.
I'm familiar with how those work, but if someone signs up officially for a house check and they fill out the paperwork and submit it to the department and it's approved, and there's an incident at the house during the house check period, the department's not on the, say someone breaks into, there's a burglary at the house, well, the homeowner is not there, but the homeowner signed up for the house check program. We're not liable, are we, for, if there's a burglary at the house during the house check period?
Yeah, I don't
They
think,
can't be there all the time, I know
No.
that. but-
yeah, I mean, the house check is a reassurance that we'll go and double check on the house if they're gone for, you know, a period of a couple weeks or a couple months in the wintertime. We'll swing by there, we'll check on the residents, make sure that there's nothing apparent that's obvious. But there's no way we can possibly guarantee that nothing's gonna happen to it. And I think the people that sign up for that are well aware of it. But it is an added security for them that if there were a burglary, say in the wintertime, and it was the middle of the winter and we check it on a weekly basis, that at least it doesn't go a month where the heat's pouring out of a door that was kicked open. that we would find it in a narrower timeframe, and maybe even develop suspects out of that
Yeah.
because of the shortened timeframe of finding it.
It's a good program. I do recall some years back, when I employed that, and I got to the destination where I was going to, and in the middle of the night, I got a call from the PD. I don't remember who it was, but it was a sergeant. He said, I'm standing in your living room here on Shore Drive. What? What the hell are you talking about? He says the front door wasn't locked. It's a good program.
It is, it is.
Do you think there should be some kind of a disclaimer on the form when
I was gonna mention that, but I was never under the impression that something happened to my house when I was not there and I was signed up for the program, that it was your fault. No.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
I just wonder what,
Yeah, we could certainly look at doing like a disclaimer on the
just so that
house check
people
form.
get, they're not gonna be, it's an extra security thing, and the department's not liable if someone should break into the house when you're not home.
moving on to performance assessment report cards, you can feel.
We received 7 report cards, all of them were A. And then for overdose statistics, year-to-date, we responded to 71 total overdoses, which is down slightly from the same time frame we were at last year. Last year, we responded to 146 total for the year of 2017, and right now we're at 71. Our overdose deaths, that number is actually incorrect. The 6 for 2018, we had one the other day. That number is actually 8 overdose deaths.
We're running a little ahead.
We are running a little ahead on the
Death side of the
actual
whole
deaths,
thing.
yes. Yeah. Certainly, the opioid problem has not gone away.
No.
Despite the work that we're doing. I know Lieutenant Butler came out the other day and worked on the overdose death that we had. I think they're following up on some leads for it, but certainly these are very tragic. This kid was 20 years old, and the overdoses he's found at least, 12 hours later. Very tragic for the family, just resounding impacts on everybody. So it certainly has an impact on our community, our officers that respond to these scenes, and we're doing what we can to curb this, so.
Yeah. So it looks like at this point, at the end of August last year, there were 89 overdose calls, and this year we're at 71. I'm just curious about, is there are you seeing some of the same people over and over again of the 71 we've had so far this year? Are they new people or first-timers, or?
I think it's a combination of both. I mean, we certainly see multiple, people overdose multiple times.
Yeah.
Until someone's at the point that they are willing and want to reach out and accept help, there's nothing you can do to help somebody that doesn't want help. So I think we certainly see that, and I think we certainly see new people that are overdosing that we're not familiar with as well. Certainly, I think we see a certain spike, in the quantity or the quality of drugs coming into Laconia. We tend to run in cycles. This past weekend, we had, 3 or 4 overdoses, throughout the weekend, whereas some weekends we have none. So it just depends on what variety the heroin's cut with.
Yeah.
We also saw one of these deaths is a methamphetamine death, which I don't think we've ever seen a methamphetamine death here in Laconia that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, that doesn't happen too often.
No, it's pretty unusual that someone dies of an overdose on methamphetamine. So I don't know if that's a new trend starting or not, but we'll certainly keep an eye on that as well.
Are a lot of these folk, I'm being general here, but is it fair to say that most of these 71 people so far this year on overdose calls, are they Laconia residents? Are they coming from other places? Or is it a combination of both?
I don't know offhand. I guess I would say mostly they're Laconia residents, or at least they spend most of their time in Laconia.
Connection to the city?
Yeah. Sure.
Thank you.
Multicultural Day.
Multicultural Day was, last Saturday? Very well-attended event. We had Officer Kimtis work the event. Very well-attended. No issues at all, so.
Moving on, tip 411.
The TIP 411 is a new program that we'll be rolling out next month. It is gonna replace our crime reporting, which is an online version of, you can go on it, and you can click on it, and it'll show you the crime that's happening in Laconia in different areas. TIP 411 will do the same thing, however, it's also gonna enable people to send tips to the police department, essentially replacing what our crime line used to be. So they'll be able to send text messages that will go into dispatch, they'll be able to send pictures, they'll be able to send that kind of information, which will go right into our dispatch center, and it'll be routed from there. So when we talk about knock and talks, and we might be able to increase the number of knock and talks based on anonymous drug tips that we aren't active at drug investigations, that we can just do some random knock and talks from. It's being used in a lot of other communities, and certainly this generation, you don't get a lot of information by people picking up the phone and calling anonymously, but it might be a way to generate some additional information, specifically tips for drug investigations, or really any other crimes for our patrol officers. So we'll be rolling that out next month, and I'll certainly pass along further information, but I wanted to mention it here.
And those are anonymous too, correct?
They are, yes.
Full-scale exercise.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's in its final stages. We have the last couple of meetings coming up. The drop-dead deadline for outside agencies that wanted to participate was last Friday. So I believe it's 19, don't quote me on that exact number, of other officers or staff members from other agencies in addition to Laconia PD, in addition to Laconia Fire. So there's a lot of people involved, a lot of logistics. We have a couple of more meetings towards the end to completely finalize it, but it's pretty much done for the most part.
Where will this one be held?
October 20th, Saturday.
Where?
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 Memorial Middle School,
The middle school?
Laconia Middle School.
So certainly, preparation for an active shooter event, particularly in the schools, is one of our priorities. This is something we started working on last year and training our officers, or further training our officers in doing this through tabletops, command staff exercises. We did the full-scale exercise last year, and we're just looking to improve on some of the mistakes and some of the weaknesses that we identified last year, to improve upon those in this exercise. Certainly something that has to be on the forefront of our minds and forefront of our training, in working in collaboration with our school partners as well, so.
Anything under old business?
Nothing?
New business?
Nothing?
Confirmation of the next meeting date, looking at, due to some scheduling conflicts, is it possible to move the meeting till the 24th of October instead of the 17th?
Yes, works for me.
Other business? Citizens' comments? You have 2 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you. My name is Dennis Lentz. I'm a survivor, 10-year survivor of what's been rated as one of the most dangerous cities in the state of New Hampshire. But I'm a voter too, and I voted for you. And you're doing a good job. You're asking questions I like to hear. And you're doing a good job too, and you got a sense of humor too, and you need it. You know, Lieutenant Sweat had a sense of humor too. And it's like, you know, there's some of us who really want to change something that's happened here. So for you commissioners, I have a bumper sticker here for you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And there's a few things I've spoke about before here. I've talked about the budget and stuff. I've even stated that there needs to be more money spent for education than law enforcement because of the way it has come up, because of the way some of the officers have worked. the commissioner that sat there before said 3 times how I hate the police. I never said that. I never said that at all. But it's like, I've been trying to work with the police for a while because I was a licensed private detective for almost 30 years in this state. And a lot of lives have been lost. But here, discounting the misspelling and grammatical errors, because it was written by a graduate of the Belknap County Educational System, there's some other information there that there was a letter that was submitted by that person earlier in 2011, which disappeared, which could have turned the tide of what happened some years ago. You know, every 2 years, I've always filed a notice to respond, usually on April Fool's Day. I did it on 2014, 2016. 2018 would have been the 2 year that I would have done it, but as worldwide, it's kind of renowned that another person was actually a reverend who was not only persecuted for speaking out system, he got crucified. So I didn't file one
Time
this
is up,
year.
but out of courtesy, I'll give you another 30 seconds.
I'll conclude. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a need for non-public?
There is not.
Motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. On a motion made by Commissioner Tyler and seconded by Commissioner Mello, passed unanimously in accordance with RSA. Meeting's adjourned.